I want to welcome everybody to Something to Talk About, our daily check-in here at the Senior Community Center. And we're really fortunate today to have Ian McCallum here. Ian is the head coach, director, and chief bottle washer of Bainbridge Island Football Club, which we know as soccer. And I asked Ian if he would come and talk a little bit about that because they have some fun events that might be of interest to us. But in the course of our conversation, he said he'd be willing to talk a little bit about his journey to Bainbridge Island, which started many, many miles away. And as soon as you hear him talk, you'll know from where. So welcome, Ian.
Thank you.
We're very grateful to have you here. So I don't know exactly where you want to start, but I know where we're going to end, which is right here on Bainbridge Island.
Sure. Well, first of all, my sister assures me I have an American accent. When we do get the chance to go back to Scotland, my wife assures me that my accent changes immediately, and I have to translate what the conversation is a number of times. My wife Erin is from Florida, Melbourne Beach, Florida, where I love to visit, just not in the middle of summer. But like I'm sure everyone, no one is getting to visit family, and Google Meet, Zoom has been a wonderful opportunity for everyone to stay connected. This is my first time using Google Meets, but we'll give it a go. I did create a little presentation, and we'll go through it. But at any time, if you have questions, I'll try to answer them. One of my strengths as a person, I believe, is kind of remembering who people are and where I met them. One of my weaknesses is remembering stats and information, and I guess I'll put that back to my history teacher in high school. So let me. As we mentioned, I grew up in Scotland and on the west coast, in the small town of Rossi, which is on the island of Bute, which is about from Glasgow. It's probably about a 50-minute drive to the coast, and then the ferry ride over from Weems Bay, this area on the right here across to Rossi, is about 35-minute ferry ride. On the north end of the island, right at the top here, there's a little town called Collintrive, or community called Collintrive, and then Rabodach, which is on the on Bute, and that's about a 90-second ferry ride. So just like we have the Agate Pass Bridge on Bute, they have the 90-second ferry ride over to Collintrive. I will share that I just turned 50, and Reed assures me I've got just 5 more years before I can join the senior center.
You can join today if you want, but yes, we're happy to have people of all ages participate. Congratulations on the milestone.
Thank you. Bute has a population, so I had to go back to my stats here. This past, the last time they did a census, Bute had a population of 6,500 people. And in the town of Rossi, which I would compare to Winslow, I guess, 4,400 is the population there. When I went to high school, it wasn't like Bainbridge where you have Sakai, Woodward, and the high school. It was you went to elementary school, which we called primary school. And then you went to, I went to Rossi Academy, which I guess goes from 11 years old through to 18, 19 years old, depending on what age you are when you graduate. And currently, there is 281 pupils at that school. So that's from Sakai, 5th grade, all the way to 12th grade, 281 students. When I went to school, you could choose to leave in 10th grade. I stayed on to 12th grade with a number of my friends, but back in the day, a lot of the folk, or my colleagues, chose to leave in 10th grade to go on to do trade school, working as a big agricultural community, but basically go out as a 16-year-old and get a job, joiner, electrician, plumber, working on a farm, all kind of manual type laborers. So I reckoned that my graduating class in high school was about 25 folk, and it might have been less. I just can't remember back to that.
And was that people from the whole island, or were there other schools that were on the island?
So there was one high school, and in Rothsay there was your primary school and your high school, and then just north of the little icon there, Port Bannatyne, there was a small school there, and honestly, I can't remember how many folk went to that primary school, but it could have been 10, could have been 15, but probably not much more than that. And then there was, in Rothsay, there was a Catholic school, and that went up to probably 4th grade, and then all those kids would go to Rothsay Academy. Growing up as a young kid, I feel as if, well, two things. I feel as if kids on Bainbridge are very privileged about the community they live in, and really until they leave, I don't think appreciate it. And I was probably the same. I'll click on here. So this is Rothsay Harbour here in the middle here, and this lock up at the top here is Loch Fad, and then the hills over the back here are actually not part of Butte. These are the hills of Arran, and Arran. Can I go back here? Arran is an island, this big island here, just below the red icon, if you can see that. So quite a difference in size. And then the main community's in here, but it stretches out on the shore on each side here. And I will share in the kind of January, February time period, with the high tides, this main part of town here in the harbour floods on a regular basis, and there's nothing they can do about that. And this is a ferry, different ferry to the Bainbridge Seattle ferries, where I believe they have a kind of flat hull, whereas these ones is much sharper. Again, January and February, this ferry service may stop because of the strong winds and just safety. So there will be days where there may not be a ferry service. So you're either on the island or you're off the island. I'll also say that like the first ferry leaving Rothsay in the morning is at 6:30, and depending on the time of year, the last ferry onto the island may be at 6:30 at night, 7 o'clock at night. So again, outside those time periods, you're either on the island or you're off the island.
And growing up in the Puget Sound area, I can tell you that there were days, or there were years, when that was more the case than it is today. We have certainly gotten to think of the ferry system as a part of the Department of Transportation highways, but that was not always the case. We've become spoiled by the by the regularity, and even now, occasionally ferries will be canceled between Whidbey Island and Port Townsend because of weather, but
Sure.
Not these super ferries here in Elliott Bay.
Sure. Just a small tip of information: the ferry company is called CalMac, and both my sister and her husband work for the ferry company. Here is the small ferry I talked about on the north end of the island. This is an example of one of the ferries, and right behind here is the other side. So we're on the Rabodach side of the passage, and right across here, where those little houses are, that's the journey. And like I said, it's probably about it has to come out, turn around, and then go across. And all told, I guess probably like 60 to 90-minute journey. Probably takes longer to load the ferry than it actually does to travel across the water. I'm probably thinking back in memory, this probably holds maybe 20 cars maximum. It might not even be as much as that, but yeah, it's kind of neat journey. Right in the center of Rossi, there's a castle, and I was again, I told you my history was not very good, but I think the history of Butte goes back to about 2000 BC. But there's a castle in the center of Butte. This tower here is actually outside the grounds, and this used to be the city kind of town hall. And growing up as a kid, this clock tower was my. I never carried a watch. You could see the clock tower here from has a clock on 4 sides, and you could see it from different areas. And then down at the harbor, there's a clock as well. So if you're walking around town, you could easily get by without having to wear a watch, because everything was in about 5-10 minute walk, and you were always able to see a clock at any one point. This is just the kind of a view of the seafront here, and we have a lot of palm trees in the front in Rossi. I don't know how they got there, but there's a lot of palm trees. How they survive, I'm not quite sure, but you know, this is a good looking palm tree. Right between the branches of the palm tree is actually the high school, Rossi Academy, that I attended. Large building, I think it was 3 or 4 stories high, right on top of the kind of above these houses here, and it is actually no longer in use, and they built a joint campus, which, let me click back, is right up about here somewhere. And that joint campus basically is one school that covers the entire island, from kindergartners all the way to high school seniors. My son is my oldest son is a freshman in high school, and our plan is to send him over to my parents next February. And him, Finn, and a friend of his will stay with my parents February through the end of June and go to the high school there. Some tricky pieces to maneuver, because he won't be there for the full school year. So he won't, his exam results or the work that he does over there won't transfer over to Bainbridge High School. But we're looking to send him more for the experience, having that time with my his grandparents. My parents are in their late 70s, early 80s, and just to have that time and just to have that educational experience.
And get a sense of living on a very different island.
Yep, and in a smaller community, and also my master financial plan is that he would go to college in the UK versus the expensive colleges in the US, and just, you know, a more worldly experience for him. And we have 3 boys. I would hope that my 7th grade son Brody is able to make that journey as well. We have a 4th grade son also, Shay. I'm not sure if he's going to make that journey, hopefully, but again, you know, that's about, you know, 5 or 6 years away, and my parents are going to be up there in age by then. This is just another angle. This large building in here, Rossi back in the 60s, 70s was a huge tourist resort. Glasgow used to have a major holiday, Glasgow Fair, I think it was called, and folk would come down in different boats. There's a paddle boat steamer called the Waverley, that would take folk down. They would come down for day trips or come down and stay over a week, 2-week period. And this building here would hold concerts, dances. It now has a cinema in there and a restaurant. But it was a big area for holding community events. And this area, again, is the area that will flood in the wintertime. A lot of these buildings along the front used to be hotels, or bed and breakfasts, but they're mostly now just homes. The island, this is the biggest home on the island. This is the home to the Marquis of Bute. And unfortunately, the previous Marquis died, and I think he was the 7th Marquis of Bute, passed away a couple of weeks ago. And his son, the 8th Marquis, now the 8th Marquis of Bute, gets to live here if he wishes. Probably about 20 years ago, this was open to the public, and you can go in there, and I think he has one of the biggest private art collections in the UK. And you can just go online, Marquis of Bute, and you'll see photographs and stuff in there of the different parts of his building. But it's an impressive place for sure. You can walk around the grounds. Their gardens are spectacular. There is a small swimming pool on the ground floor. Again, I said my history is not good. I do not know how old this building is, but it's pretty spectacular. And that is the end of my kind of short slideshow.
Well, there was a question from Sheila about the castle. She wondered, and maybe because of your history challenges, you might not be able to answer, but I think she was wondering if it dated back to Norman times.
I believe so. There was a small period where I think Vikings and the Normans were there. As long as I have been alive, I have known that they have been restoring this castle. I'm not sure when. I just pulled this photograph, Rossi Castle, if you do a search online. But as long as I've been alive, I have known that they've been restoring this castle. I've had family who have had weddings held in the castle. You can walk in here and walk around this area, and there is a bridge over the moat onto the castle. There's a bar right across from the moat called Max Bar. I probably went to Max Bar more often than I went to the castle. Yeah, it's pretty spectacular. I think Sheila said her family were from Perth. I have family in Stirling, which is not too far away. And Stirling and Edinburgh Castle are just spectacular. If you have the opportunity to get over there.
Great. So just a little story of Ian. So how did you happen to decide to leave the UK and travel forth? And
sure,
where did your journeys take you in a nutshell?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of background. So when I was getting ready to graduate high school and my friends were applying to colleges, and they knew what they wanted to do, and when you apply to a college in Scotland, you're actually not applying like a liberal arts college that you'd get in the US. You're actually applying to do a course at a specific college or university. So if you wanted to go into computer engineering, you would apply to go to a specific college that offered that course. You're going to a college over there are 3-year courses. So you would apply to do computer engineering for 3 years right from the get-go. I, at the time, had no idea what I wanted to do. So I didn't apply to a college. I had a part-time job. I had a number of part-time jobs as a kid in school. But one of my part-time jobs was working in a butcher shop. McIntyre's the Butchers. It was a friend of mine's father's place. So I worked in there part-time, some mornings before school and after school. And then when it came to graduating high school, he was good enough to keep me on and give me a job. But it was not something I ever wanted to do. So I got a couple of jobs. And then during that period, I was helping coach the local kids teams with my former coach, a guy named Jim Ross, who I would say I take a lot of his attributes. He was a very important person in who I've become. And so I was helping coach the kids there. And after a period of time, I had a job with a textile company. I had a job with the local city gardens, working in their cemeteries. But I realized soccer coaching or football coaching was the path I wanted to take. I applied to a college in Glasgow to do sports coaching and sports development. I started that, and during those summers, I flew across the U.S. and I worked in a sports camp in Massachusetts, just outside Lee, Massachusetts, in Western Massachusetts area. During that time, made some contacts, and then I came out to the U.S., worked at Hanover College, Indiana, with the men's program with another good friend, Jim Watts. And then I then went back to the Abertay University, which is in Dundee, which is on the east coast of Scotland. If you look at the map again, Dundee is kind of just above, well, you'll see it in the icon here. And I finished up my degree at Abertay University. From there, I flew out to New Jersey and worked for a company called United Soccer Coaches, who were formed by a bunch of English guys who would bring soccer coaches from the UK over to the US, and we would work in different clubs. So I got a full-time job with them. I met my wife on a flight from Cincinnati to Newark. She was a flight attendant, and we got married. We had kids, and our oldest son Finn was born in New Jersey. We then moved to Minnesota, where our second son was born, Brody. And then I worked for a club there, and a college there. And then in 2009, we made it all the way to Bainbridge Island. And since 2009, I've been running the soccer club on the island with a guy named Phil Avison, who's from the Burnley area in England, just outside Manchester. And Phil has been with the club nearly 20 years now. It would surprise me if a lot of, I don't know how many kids Phil has coached over those 20 years, but it's a lot of kids. And, that kind of takes me to, where we are today in running soccer on Bainbridge.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that the island has grown a lot in those years, and of course, soccer has become much more of a acknowledged, certainly a professional sport in the country of the United States in that time. Nowhere near when you were growing up, where you grew up, but we have we have professional soccer team. We have stars that people can look up to as young people now. It's probably changed quite a bit in the country while you've been teaching.
Yeah, I would say that the level of coach education and the professionalism, even at the youth levels, has grown over the last 20 plus years that I've been in the US. It's pretty special. One I'd say the highlights of my time with Bainbridge is in 2019, we took a group of 50, probably about 40 kids and 10 adults over to Manchester. We stayed in a youth hostel in kind of downtown Manchester. We played games against local teams. We practiced with Manchester City's coaches. We went to 4 professional games, 3 men's games and 1 women's game. We visited the town of the city of York and the city of Chester, and just had one of the best experiences I think any kid could have. It's actually 2 years to the week that we were there. We were supposed to go last year, and we were supposed to go this year, but as we all know, we've had to adjust because of COVID.
So I was going to ask a little bit. I know that you've talked a lot about kids. There is an adult soccer program on Bainbridge, and there's also an event, sort of a event for all, called walking soccer. I wonder if you might touch on those.
Sure. Well, there's actually, I was actually on an email string this morning. Across Seattle, there's a Greater Seattle Adult Soccer League, and you actually there's an over 40s team, an over 50s team, and maybe an over 55 team from Bainbridge that would play in that league. And I think those teams have evolved. The over 40s team is the majority of Bainbridge folk, and the over 50 and 55 teams, I think it's a mixture of guys who have lived on Bainbridge and maybe now live in Seattle, but have stayed together. Those leagues have not been getting played. But 2 years ago, we started up an adult league on Bainbridge on a Friday night, and that league is kind of anyone from 20 years and upwards. I think the youngest player we had 2 years ago was maybe 21, and then the oldest was maybe in his 70s. I think Alex is. He might be upset by me saying that. Alex Van Crooks. We're looking.
Well, we would tell him to get over it. That's all.
But obviously, this past year we weren't able to run anything, and I think now this coming spring we're able to run that league. That will be a Friday night league where we'll probably have 6 teams. But kind of through this process, Linda Yasutaki, who's a huge soccer person on the island, and I'm not sure how long Linda's lived on the island, a long time, I'm sure. She's a huge advocate of soccer and adult soccer, but she kind of introduced me to an adult walking soccer program that's been run in Renton, Snohomish, and I think maybe Tacoma, but I might be wrong. And walking soccer kind of was introduced in the UK a number of years ago, and I think growing up in Scotland, we just call it old folk soccer, and it just got slower. But it's become a more formal sport. I don't think there's a right or wrong age, but the gist of it is that it's a smaller field, smaller number of players on the field, and you cannot go above a fast walk. So, and Reed, if you had the ball, I can't come and barge you down and steal the ball from you and knock you on your butt. It's just a more, I guess, friendly, low-key soccer experience that, we don't want anyone to get hurt, but allows folk to have some physical exercise, some physical movement, and get to experience soccer.
So there's a free event coming up on the 14th of June, I guess, so that we might try it out, right?
Absolutely. So it's a Wednesday night. I think it's 6 o'clock at Battle Point Turf. So it's on a nice flat surface, and we're just going to set it up and see who comes along and just give it a go. Whether we have 4 players or 40 players, I would be surprised we're at 40 players, but just come along and give it a go. And it's going to be a trial and error. And then we'll be looking for feedback. When would be a good time to offer this class? Would it be a morning class? Folk can come along to Battle Point, and we're big partners with Bainbridge Island Parks Department. So we'd use Battle Point Turf, and just to give anyone another physical activity option.
Yeah, I know that that softball, I kept wanting to say baseball, I knew better than that, that softball was a real organizing factor for the senior center for many years. And a group continues, but is not quite as aligned. But I know that this would be something that many of our members who have been looking for activities might very much enjoy. So I hope that we get a good representation at your event.
I mean, the biggest thing for me, like I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and the biggest thing for me when I left the left the UK to come over to the US was my busy schedule working over here and coaching soccer over here. I missed out and practicing with my team back in Scotland and playing over there. But well, I love playing soccer. Now the biggest thing for me is that community, that team spirit, just hanging out with friends and playing something that I love, and just being able to do that recreational activity with folk that I enjoy being around with. And I appreciate it's hard during these COVID times, and hopefully the environment that myself and Phil and the other coaches have created on Bainbridge within our youth program, we can bring that into an adult program as well, where anyone looks forward to coming along on a Wednesday evening or a Wednesday morning or whatever it may be, just to hang out with their peers and play some soccer and sit back on the bleachers and talk and just have a fun time.
So that is Wednesday, the 14th of June from 6 to 7 as a sort of a trial run of walking soccer for everyone. And you can find out more about it on the Bainbridge Island Football Club website, which is BIFC.net.
Perfect.
No nets involved, though. BIFC.net.
Net.
Thanks a lot, Ian.
No problem.